It took some time to get over our self-imposed barrier of hiring help. That's what a successful writer named Chris admitted about herself and her husband about 10 years into having a housekeeper. I'm not a lazy person, she continues, and it struck me as a weak, self-indulgent thing to do. Over time, however, I realized that my guilt was misplaced. If you have ever felt less than comfortable about paying people to cook, wash your car, clip your hedges, do your laundry, drive, you're not alone. I've known a number of individuals, usually the self-made sort, who have absolutely no problem employing people in their businesses, but get a little shy about putting people to work in their homes when the time comes to. Some even ask, am I less than a good person for paying someone to do things I am fully capable of doing myself? Fair question, and one that speaks to how we think about time, money, and value. So, if you have headphones, now would be the time to put them on, step on your treadmill, get on a bike, and let's take a moment to reflect on the economics of hiring help, the moral and practical implications of it, and decide whether guilt, in your case, is a justified emotion or indeed completely misplaced. This is Tang from Well Situated, and these are my opinions and constitute neither legally certified nor professional advice. Starting with the basics, each of us has a finite number of hours in a day. How we allocate those hours is the central economic decision we make every morning when we wake up. Will there be chores? Will there be work that generates income? Will there be leisure, etc.? To keep this simple, let's say someone values their time at $1,000 US per hour. That might be a professional billing rate, incremental earnings in a business, or simply based on an internal sense of productivity. Now, imagine you have the option of paying someone 20 an hour to mow your lawn, clean your house, make dinner. The math is fairly straightforward. Let's say you can pay $100 to have your lawn cut, or you can keep your money and spend, say, 2 hours mowing your lawn yourself. So, of course, you've kept your $100, but lost your opportunity to earn or produce a couple of $1,000s. Conversely, if you pay someone to do it, they gain income they may not have earned otherwise, and you get to deploy that 2 hours you saved toward something productive, reviewing investments, meeting with an advisor, moving forward on a new venture, effectively making $1,900 in net value, $2,000 worth of your own potential output minus the 100 you paid. If you're an artist, maybe your studio time isn't measured in dollars and cents. Maybe it's measured in breakthroughs or inspiration. But even then, you know when you're more valuable creating versus when you're better off delegating. For instance, in my producing days, I was what you might call serviceable on guitar, not bad on a keyboard, certainly capable of making release-ready records completely alone, but pulling in players and letting the specialists play was orders of magnitude more efficient in time, effort, and operating expense. It's Adam Smithian, division of labor. On the one hand, the needed chores throughout your home property, and on the other hand, more profitable things you could be at the business of. So, is there any reason to feel guilty about paying people money they might not otherwise have the opportunity to make? If the things you have on deck to do are truly higher value uses of your time, then economically speaking, outsourcing just makes sense. But here's the thing, even if you take that net time gain and spend an hour of it lounging on the couch, watching a streaming show, you're still trading $20 for the luxury of your own time. Is watching that streaming show worth $1,000 to you? Maybe. And if it is, totally fine. You should recognize it as an act of choice, not necessarily a moral failing on your part. Deep down, we know when we need to recharge, and we know when we're wasting time. Just remember that nobody gets to make that call for you but you. One more thing about time. Think about when you invest. You look for margin of safety, the difference between a company's intrinsic value and its market price. When you delegate a home chore, consider thinking about your personal margin of safety. in a similar way. If you pay someone 20 an hour to help around the house, you're effectively buying a margin of safety for your schedule. Maybe you're not staring directly at $1,000 in immediate value for that hour, but you're anticipating that your time saved today might yield returns down the road that justify the cost. Maybe with that extra hour, you finish a project that leads to a $30 million deal. Or maybe you just avoid burnout and operate more effectively from week to week. Maybe instead of folding laundry, you use that hour to help your child bake cookies for a school fundraiser, laughing together, getting flour everywhere, creating a memory you and your kid will never forget. Your margin of safety in these examples is the cushion between the cost of the service and the potential gain from redeploying that time block of yours. As long as you manage to hire someone who does the job well, respects your home, and gets fair compensation for their years of experience, you've created a win-win. You've bought back your time. They've earned a living. Moving beyond pure economics, there is a more human consideration to take a moment for, and that consideration is respect. When you hire someone to clean your house or mow your lawn, you're exchanging money for a person's labor. Labor is a thing we all perform in one form or another, whether we're company founders, boat captains, restaurant servers, butchers, bakers, candlestick makers. Labor has dignity. If you pay wages that leave your housekeeper living paycheck to paycheck, or your gardener struggling to make ends meet, then you're effectively extracting more value from their work than you're giving back. No shortage of stories out there about minimum wage workers having to choose between housing and medicine. It's truly a shame. So if you can afford to pay someone $20 an hour, consider whether you can afford 25 or 30. If you think about the size of your property and the number of hours of your personal time being freed up by someone's labor each day, can some of those savings in time and money be apportioned into something that lifts your household staff's quality of life? Maybe that means health benefits. Maybe that means paying for their child's school supplies. Maybe you tip super generously at holiday time. What may be a small gesture to you can make an outsized difference in the lives of your staff. And that is how we turn an otherwise cold economic transaction into something rooted in human decency. A family I'm aware of does a proactive raise every year. Their housekeeper's too shy to ask, even though she's consistently delivered high quality service and even takes on extra tasks beyond her original scope. So they just bump her automatically, which makes her feel valued and avoids everyone the awkwardness of her having to ask for more money. Another family takes it upon themselves to pay full daily rate on holidays plus a little extra, even though the cleaning visit is canceled on those days. Other families offer paid time off, reinforces their staff's sense of security and loyalty, and has a noticeable impact on morale. Over time, kindnesses like these acknowledge the sometimes near invisible labor of your staff, so frequently undervalued and ignored. The cooking, dusting, scrubbing, the organizing. Proactive economic consideration demonstrates that you recognize someone's time, effort, and skill. You're reducing financial insecurity. You're easing, perhaps even eliminating the anxiety of living hand to mouth for someone. You're building long-term trust and loyalty with hardworking people who share so much space and time with you under your roof. You're encouraging dignity and autonomy in that when you pay a bit more, give extra time off, you acknowledge that the worker has needs outside your household. Effectively, you're showing respect. Speaking of respect, there's something to be said about retaining the basics of self-reliance. You don't want to wake up one day, find your staff unavailable, and realize you haven't worked a toaster oven in 20 years. When you allow yourself to lose your ability to do mundane tasks, you lose touch with reality. If that sounds right to you, if you share this philosophy as I do, you'll always keep a watchful eye on your books. You'll review and understand your utility bills. You'll know how to fix a leaky faucet if need be. Not even because you're particularly handy, but because you want to avoid ever becoming helpless. Your self-sufficiency gives you confidence and flexibility. It also keeps you grounded. It ensures that when you pay someone to do a task, it's a conscious choice, not a necessity. Clearly, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't hire help for routine tasks. By all means, let somebody else run errands so you can spend your mental energy on business and being with family. But I do suggest that every now and then you roll up sleeves and do some of the things you've hired staff to do, just to stay in touch. It helps you maintain respect for the people who perform these tasks every day. When you scrub the floor yourself, you can't help but appreciate the value of those who do it all the time. It's good practice. And again, you'll know that when you do hire someone, it's because you've earnestly decided that outsourcing is your best use of time, not because you've forgotten how to carry your own weight. That said, you're also going to need to let go and let yourself be served. This can be a challenge if you're a certain personality type. If you bring someone into your home, but then micromanage every little detail, nitpicking your driver's route, telling your housekeeper how to fold every towel, instructing your chef on the exact angle at which to slice a tomato. You've become your own worst staff member. The goal is to hire people you trust in the first place, hire a caliber of people who can make high quality choices on your behalf, and then give them enough breathing room to do that. Of course, that doesn't mean checking out completely. You still set the standards, communicate your family's preferences, and step in when something genuinely goes off the rails. But if you don't allow your help a measure of autonomy, you're stripping away the very value you paid for, their expertise, their initiative, and their judgment. Hire help, then let your help be helpful. Either you or your house manager should be giving your staff clear guidelines and enough responsibility to do their jobs well and not feel second guessed on every minor choice. When you trust your home staff to run with a ball, so to speak, within the parameters you establish, you free up your own time to focus on those high value tasks you're actually needed for. Now, if you believe the saying that every dollar you spend is a vote for the kind of world you want to live in, then you might also agree with me that your conscience often knows whether or not you're voting wisely. If you regularly hire workers at rock bottom wage while you glide through your life in luxurious homes, five-star hotels, amazing cars and clothing, you may find an uneasy feeling starting to settle in, and you may actually deserve that feeling. That unease is a signal that you're not aligned. Your actions aren't matching your underlying values. If, on the other hand, you make a deliberate decision to pay actual living wages, to treat service providers with respect, to reinvest some of that savings into causes that genuinely help people, for example, then your spending creates a virtuous cycle. Just to be clear, I'm far from anyone's moral judge. Guilt is an individual emotion. It's most usually informed by your own conscience, your upbringing, your life philosophy. But I do believe guilt sometimes acts like a check engine light on your moral dashboard. It tells you something needs inspection. If guilt haunts you every time you pay someone for services rendered, then yeah, maybe it's time to pause and ask what exactly is making me feel this way. It could be that deep down you know you're not paying enough, not treating people properly, or perhaps not using the time you're saving in any worthwhile manner. Let the data inform your emotions. If you can show that by hiring an assistant, you gain 2 hours a day, let's say, that yield a significant multiple of the highly competitive amount you're paying to have your errands calendar, email, and phone handled, you should probably feel good about that exchange. If, on the other hand, you realize you've squandered those 2 hours on worthless nothingness, well, you may have earned that twinge of guilt. But that guilt is useful. It reminds us to be more deliberate and pay more attention to what we do with our freed up time. Guilt shouldn't oppress you. It should correct you. Bottom line on whether or not you should feel guilty about hiring help on things you could do yourself. It's the why and how that matter. If you hire because your time truly carries more value invested elsewhere, and if you treat the people you hire with respect and excellent compensation, there's just no rational reason to be holding some kind of guilt about that. If you hire out of pure laziness and end up wasting your freed up time, if you micromanage, if you underpay, then a dose of guilt may be that guilt is communicating something to you. It's saying there's a misalignment here and someone's losing in this deal, which means ultimately you're losing in this deal, even if your loss takes some time to present itself. If hiring lets you more freely pursue work that creates more wealth for yourself and by extension for the economy, then it's not a huge stretch to view hiring as an investment with outsourcing your home operations is simply the cost of entry. And if hiring doesn't interfere with you maintaining your self-sufficiency, in other words, if you occasionally roll up sleeves and remember how to do the basics, you avoid becoming helpless in the face of unexpected setbacks. Buffett says the most important quality in a successful investor is temperament, not intellect. If you can calmly and dispassionately assess the math, respect the dignity of labor, and balance self-reliance with sensible delegation, then you can employ home staff with confidence. You can see hiring help not as a moral deficiency, but as a strategic choice that benefits everyone involved when done correctly. Your time is the most precious resource you will ever own. Buy it. Allocate it wisely. View other people's time as precious too. Pay them well. Treat them kindly. And give them the autonomy to do their jobs well in their own way. When you do it like that, hiring in your home is nowhere near an indulgence or moral failing. Far from it. Hiring becomes an act of awareness that honors your most fragile asset. It respects the labor and skill of professionals, and it frees you to lead a more intentional life. Thanks for listening.